Welcome back to the show. We're talking about the BDS movement for Palestinian rights that is trying to boycott Israel. And we continue now with two more views on the issue. Joining us from London is Abdel Bari Atwan. He is the editor-in-chief of the digital Arab news and opinion site al-Youm. And with me here in the studio is Matthew Brodsky. He is senior fellow at the Security Studies Group. Welcome to both of you to the show. Abdel Bari Atwan, let me start with you. We've just been listening to both sides, both opinions or views on this issue. But what about the Israeli argument that when we look at the goals of BDS, I mean, the ultimate goal here is to seek a peace settlement, to seek a settlement to this conflict, which has been going on for so long. Doesn't it harm the prospects for that settlement when we see a movement like BDS doing what it wants to do?
But to be honest, I'm surprised all this Israeli campaign against BDS, which is a non-violent organization. You know, we have to remember that, you know, the Israeli got more than 300 nuclear warheads. And the Israeli got, you know, huge support from the United States. And, you know, they are controlling the whole of Palestine. They actually killed completely the two-state solution. They are practicing apartheid policies against more than 6 or 7 million Palestinians on the occupied territories and inside Israel itself. So I'm surprised if we advocate for our rights, if we actually practice our freedom of expression like anybody on earth. Here we are accused of many things. I'm surprised the BDS is going to destroy Israel. Destroy Israel by what? Do they have, ballistic missiles, for example? There are peaceful groups calling for justice for the Palestinian people, to the end of the blockade of Gaza, to stop the killing of the Israeli, of the Palestinian people, live ammunition there in Gaza, also live ammunition on the West Bank, in Jerusalem. So this is the problem we are facing. Here, there is a huge actually, lies from the Israeli sides and their supporter, whether in the United States or any other part of the world.
Yeah, Abdel Bari Atwan, my question was,
yes,
isn't there a better way of doing this? If the ultimate goal is to seek an agreement, a settlement, if we're going to have two states living side by side in peace, there's a better way of doing it rather than BDS, which is seen by the Israelis as something that's very hostile.
You are absolutely right. You know, we did have two-state solution. The Palestinians accepted to give up 80% of their territories in order to have a small state by the Israelis. But what will happen? They killed it. Where is the two-state solution? Tell me. Have you heard any Israeli talking about two-state solution? Have you heard of Benjamin Netanyahu talking about two-state solution?
All right.
Have you heard of Jared Kushner, the son-in-law of Trump, talking about two-state solution? Give me one example.
All right, let me bring it to the studio. Matthew, let's look at what's going on here in the United States. We have two Muslim women now in the United States Congress and the House of Representatives who support the BDS movement. One of them is Rashida Tlaib, who is herself Palestinian-American. How do you see that? Are you concerned that, they've brought this front and center, this issue right now, that it could generate support for the BDS movement, not just in the United States, but internationally as well?
I think we're definitely seeing that on the political left in the United States. And we're talking about Rashida Tlaib. Her specifically, she was just on CNN over the weekend doing an interview and was asked by the anchor, again, about whether she recognizes Israel's right to exist. And she engages in the same clever wordplay that your other guests on the other side tend to, which is they recognize Israel as a fact. They don't actually recognize its right to exist. So in much the same way that the BDS movement is not, in fact, about creating a two-state solution. It doesn't even say that anywhere in its platform. It's simply about delegitimizing Israel, and it's about replacing the Israeli state with a Palestinian state. That is essentially what people are signing up for on the political left here, and increasingly more in Europe, where the problem of anti-Semitism is frankly larger and growing faster.
To that point, it's a question I asked Daniel Pomerantz a moment ago. Is it possible to criticize Israeli government policies without being called anti-Semitic?
Right. I think his answer was perfectly great, Daniel's answer. Yeah. The fact is, though, when you're going after certain policies, that's totally understandable. But when your platform simply says that what you want is to not only grant equal rights, which, of course, the Palestinians who live in Israel, the Palestinian Arabs or Israeli Arabs, have equal rights, and then you want to have the so-called right of return of descendants of Palestinian refugees, which would essentially, swallow the state of Israel. You're essentially calling for the destruction of the state of Israel. So if you're just going after the one single country that happens to be a Jewish state, which according to the UN partition plan, it's supposed to be a Jewish state, then yeah, that kind of is anti-Semitism.
Right. Abdel Bari Atwan, if you look at the effectiveness of BDS, of the movement right now, we look at here in the United States, there are at least 26 states in the United States here that have passed laws that make it illegal for, that say, not make it illegal, that say that states would not do businesses with companies that boycott Israel. Isn't that a setback for the BDS movement?
I'm surprised why those congressmen actually did not vote against South African supporter, against, the people who are against apartheid. But when it comes to Israel, we know that the Israeli lobby is dominating the Congress completely, and we can tell from the amount of votes which support Israel. I think there is a huge misleading concept here. BDS actually is not going to destroy Israel. We know that it is the right of the Palestinian people, the Palestinian supporter all over the world, like the Jewish supporter, the Israeli supporter, to advocate for their rights. I'm surprised why we cannot have the freedom of expression, why we cannot resist the occupation, why we cannot actually say to the Israeli enough is enough, why we cannot advocate for 3,000 people disabled completely. We're demonstrating in peaceful way in the border of Gaza, and they were shot dead by the Israeli. Why we cannot actually say we are looking for one Palestinian state like everybody? He's talking about Jewish state. What about Palestinian state? Now, last thing, when he says that, the Arab and Israel are equal to the Israeli, there are, 20% of the population of Israel, are Arabs, and they don't have one single minister in the Israeli cabinet. This is the racism. If we want to talk about racism, this is the racism. Where are the Palestinian ministers, those people who are the citizens of Israel? How many ambassadors of them on the international community? That's the question we should ask.
Matthew, looking at what the legislatures and states in the United States here have done, I mean, that's something that we hear very often. It's the Jewish lobby.
Yeah, which is also, the flips. Everyone has a careful code for how you say careful anti-Semitic things. And as we've just heard, when you essentially say, well, we're not calling for the destruction of Israel, we're just paving the path there and pretending, oh, I had no idea. Come on, that's what this is. The fact is, this is a very polarized issue. And as we've seen on the left, politically, there's a sort of grievance issue, and that they simply look toward. It's a hierarchy, really, of intersectionality is what it's called. But frankly, this is what they're trying to do to help delegitimize Israel. But again, at no point is there anything involving a solution for Palestinians. The SodaStream example that was used earlier, this affects the Palestinians. It does nothing to improve their life. It just makes these people feel better because they make a political point, and then they get to shake hands afterwards and be all clever because we got to say anti-Semitic things, but we're really good in disguising it.
And we're going to have to leave it there. Thanks to both of you for being with us. That's it for this edition of Heat. Thanks for watching.